were invited in to host a 1.5, 2 hour meeting with some captains of industry. And Sue and I thought, well, that's easy, we'll do that. That was in the Egg, it was in February, it was good fun, everybody sat in a circle, and these CEOs had never seen circle work, so everybody had a good time. And we thought, well, that's that. And little did we realize that there was another 26 meetings to go, whatever it was. So we were surprised, but the way we approached it was we really need, first of all, for every single step on the way to understand with complete clarity what is the purpose. What is the purpose of the overall strategy, and that was easy, 10 million tons. But also, what is the purpose of each individual meeting? And for the first set of meetings, the first 14, that actually changed for each meeting. And for the last 6, which was, almost last 6, which was setting up the individual working groups they eventually ended up in, that required a standardized script because each working group should basically work in the same way. So there was a constant design process, and the design is really key here, because what the hosting team did was to work with the content team to really say, okay, well, you have a concept note and it says what needs to happen and what are the outcomes you're looking for. So let's make sure that we understand purpose in this. Let's make sure that we can really distill out what is it you need for these participants to deliver on the day, so we can see what shape outcome needs to come out of it. And by listening deeply into that and simplifying quite complex aspirations in the notes, we managed to turn that into actually a set of relatively straightforward questions to ask of the participants, who could then deliver back very complex answers that could then be taken on board. We used a wide variety of tools from the participatory leadership catalog, world cafes, open space, appreciative inquiry, circles, self-clustering, storytelling, sticky dot voting, lots of classic things. But we also had to develop tools for this purpose. And one of the things which we had, and which we fortunately had done before, because it would have taken time away from actually hosting the plastic, was a process Sue and I had developed for approving documents in a participatory way. And it was about 2 years old at that time. We were sitting around one day and we said to ourselves, what is it the Commission does? Well, the Commission produces documents. So how do they approve those? Well, they do a lot of track changes around a long mill until everybody is desperate and they finally sign off on it. So we thought, well, what can we do to make this process participatory? And so we looked at various approaches and ended up with an actual process which basically requires a crack secretariat and a lot of preparation on the part of the participants. The work at first was to create a declaration, basically a charter of what are we going to do together in the plastics value chain, and second to work on, well, how are we going to do that? So we had this process, and that we used throughout the process to create agreement on texts. But we also developed further a number of the standard practices, which we can usually call, well, Circle Plus, meant basically working in circle, but also having people discuss things in little groups within the circle before the circle reconvened as plenaries, which meant that we were extremely effective in combining plenary and breakout work in a very agile fashion that could move it at a pace and make sure that we could actually get this done in 8 months. Another thing we did was to modify cafe harvesting. In World Cafe, what you often see is people harvest on Post-its, which we use to great effect, especially in self-clustering where the participants were asked to cluster their own post-its, have a conversation while they were clustering, and give names to the clusters, which gave us a lovely extra layer of conversation. But we also had them harvest on harvesting sheets like you would use for open space, where we had asked them detailed questions we really needed answers to. So those are some of the mechanics of how we did it. But I think if you look at it from a more philosophical point of view, and we like to do that because we're that kind of people, what we were building constantly were really tight containers, meticulously planned, minute by minute, what was going to happen in this meeting. But the participants experienced essentially complete liberty because they felt everything just happened sort of naturally, and it couldn't have happened in any other way. And some of them did detect that yes, there was some structure to it, but generally they felt that they were working in a very free environment. And the meticulous planning is really necessary if you want to not stick to the plan. No plan survives first contact with the participants, but simply so the hosting team would know at all times where they were relative to what they had set out to achieve. And so if the plan needed to be modified, and very often it did, we reconfigured scripts completely on the fly. If we saw that what we had planned wasn't working or it wasn't delivering on the purpose, we could rewrite it on the spot. Also because the hosting team had complete trust, not just in itself, but also with the core team, and therefore, whenever the hosting team said, this isn't doing it, everybody agreed immediately we'll change it. Or the other way around, if the core team wasn't getting the outcome they needed, we could come up with a script revision in minutes. So I want to conclude on just one thing that's important. Well, one and a half thing. First, the participants. They eventually got so used to working like this that you could actually put in a hosting team that wasn't familiar with the process, and we did that for some of the last meetings where we used the standardized scripts, and that worked extremely well. Also because by that time, this was after 18 meetings or something, the participants were actually trained. They knew what was expected of them. So you could host them with people who weren't completely familiar with it. But the most important thing I want to say is the material conditions. So you need an excellent room to do this in, an excellent flexible room where you can move the furniture around, where you can make a circle of chairs, or two circles of chairs in our case, because sometimes we had lots of people, where you have a breakout space with movable tables, where you can have cafes, where you can have open space, whatever you want. You need to have funding for lunch, because buying the participants lunch and having them lunch together, nobody left the room, was for me an integral success factor. The fact that we could work them formally, but with coffee breaks, so they could have cross-cutting conversations with each other, with a lunch break in the room, so they could have more conversations with each other which were not part of the formal setup, I think was essential to making it work, and also to create bonding between the participants so that they could really work together on the format. And finally, you need constant support as a hosting team from the core team. And I can say I'm still blushing after the love that came to us as a hosting team. Every single time we'd finished a meeting, it was a complete loving, Everybody loved the hosting team, and the hosting team loved the core team back. And I think that atmosphere, you think I'm joking, I'm not joking. That atmosphere to actually work like you're a family, even if you come from, you're brought together in a DG, or you come from different places and you're brought together to make this work, I think is essential. And the way we worked made that feeling happen.